Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome to Daily Drop-In, where we are live every single morning, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern to talk shop, invite guests in, and hopefully share some positivity and celebration in your morning. I am joined by the one and only Cait O'Connor. We are so excited to talk shop about our theme this week. It is Thursday, September 16th, and we will continue with our equity and inclusion theme throughout the day today, as well as take your questions live. So thank you for being here. Please go fill up your coffee. We know it's bright and early on this Thursday morning. We want to slowly get you started. And as a reminder, because it is Thursday, we will actually get into Brainstorm Bank as our first segment this morning after we do some introductions. So get ready to talk shop bright and early as you are brushing your teeth and filling up your coffee. We'll be right back. Good morning, everyone. Hey, Cait, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Rae?
Good. I know it's so early. Thank you for waking up with us for Daily Drop-In. You know, I always enjoy when you and I are able to chat, whether it be live or even just talking shop as friends. It's always good to hear from you and hear how things are going. How's your week been so far? You just started school.
Yeah. We just started school this week because we were affected by the flooding and the hurricane up in New York, in Westchester. So we just started this week. I met my students on Monday.
Wow. Oh my gosh. When I heard you say that before we went live, I'm like, holy cow, the first few weeks of school are a whirlwind. I believe this to my core. Nobody understands teacher tired the first few weeks of school. So the fact that you're up and spending time with us rather than like slowly waking up and, like getting into your school building today, I just so appreciate you. You should just know that.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I completely sometimes I'm like, wait, what is happening to my body and how am I this tired by 7 o'clock? I know.
But
Oh my God.
every single stinking year, we forget how tiring it is to start a year. And I would argue that this year has even more layers pulling that exhaustion out of us.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny because no matter how long you teach, the first few weeks murder you. It's like, pirate.
Yeah.
Well, I am sending you all good vibes. We're going to take this so slow today. We're just going to be celebrating the morning. So it's going to be so easy. For those of people who are tuning in bright and early, by the way, first of all, thank you all for being here. We're so thrilled to see you. Even if you're joining us after the fact, after a live, if you're watching it on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, or listening over at Teach Better Talk podcast, we're thrilled you're here. Feel free to participate in the comments. We love to see everybody jumping in, asking questions, saying good morning, engaging with one another. Cait, if this is their first time connecting with you, because I know you've already been involved in the Teach Better family for a really long time in different ways, but if this is someone's first time being exposed to the work that you're doing, would you mind kind of sharing kind of like your bio? Like what do you do?
So I'm an English teacher in New York. This is actually my first year teaching middle school. I'm working in 8th grade right now. We're both middle school teachers now, which is awesome. But I've worked in high schools for the past 4 years up to this point, and I'm in middle school for the first time this year, so I'm really excited. I'm also, kind of teach better resident social justice teacher person. So that's a lot of the core of the work that I do. And it's super exciting to be able to talk to you guys about it whenever I can. So even at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm always down for a conversation about diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice.
And I love that. And Cait, you're somebody who's been involved in the Teach Better team in a lot of different ways. When we had Mastery Chat on Thursday nights, that was something that you've hosted and participated in numerous times. You're an avid blogger over at teachbetter.com. You have a monthly series that I know you're contributing to. And I've seen there's been months where you've written additional content within the month to try and share as much as you can with others. And something I really appreciate about you, Cait, is that you're, first of all, always up for a conversation. I love that that is your continued focus. But additionally, you're always eager to try and create like tactical change. Like, what suggestions can we all consider that we can truly go implement later today, later this week, early next week, to really begin this process? And so I really appreciate that you are an action-focused educator. It's so, so valuable. So as we're looking at like your morning, Cait, obviously you are going to be here with us. Then you're headed into your school, I assume, this morning. How is that transition between high school and eighth grade going? Obviously, it's only been a few days, but that is a shift, I feel, between high school and middle school.
Definitely. It's definitely a shift. Culturally, it's a shift, as far as like how school looks for students. But I love it so far. My students are amazing. They really are. They're just so genuine and kind and really, really outgoing. And it's just awesome to have a group of kids who are so eager to learn, especially after all that they've been through. I mean, these eighth graders that I'm teaching now, I, kind of talked to them about it the other day. They've never not had a pandemic experience during middle school. So, it's sort of, we're navigating it together, and they're taking it really, really well so far.
Yeah, Holly, I know in the comments is saying eighth grade's the best. There's been so many different grade levels that I've been able to like support teachers in. Obviously, my background in middle school really is like primarily sixth grade. But eighth grade, to me, they always seemed like so tall. Like, because my sixth graders between sixth grade and eighth grade, they grow like 12 feet, like truly. And then they go into high school and they're like adults, like instantaneously. So you really made a transition to like a little bit of a shorter version of who you were teaching in some regard.
Yeah.
But holy cow, I just think eighth grade they're like the adults of middle school. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's so great because it's I'm the new person in the school, so they show me where to go half the time, and I'm like, how do we get to the library? They're like, just follow me. And I'm like, okay, cool.
I understand. I'm spending my morning this morning at Granger Middle School here in Illinois, and I always know like where my place is in the middle school. I'm going to be working with some administrators there, but my go-to is to go walk down like the sixth grade hallway or whatever that is equivalent in whatever school I'm in. When you go down the eighth grade hallway, it's like really intimidating. Sixth grade hallway, they're all really short and funny. Like, that's my style. So I hope you enjoy
eighth graders are tall and funny. So
yes, exactly. Middle school is my jam. I love middle school, but I'm thrilled. Can I ask, like, and I'm sure it was a number of factors, so it's probably silly to ask, but what kind of inspired the shift? Were you eager for something new? Was there different content that you were eager to explore? How was that? Did you move buildings? Is this all in one building, or have you made a complete shift?
So I made a complete shift. I moved districts, regions, and grade levels. So all at
Wow,
once.
good for you, Cait.
Yeah, completely new experience. And it was just really, I've never taught middle grade like as a standalone. I've always been a TA in middle grade. That's how I started as an educator. So it was just something that I wanted to really explore more middle grade literature, because I'm so used to reading, high school, To Kill a Mockingbird, Catcher in the Rye, and not that it gets old, but I needed to experience something different, I think, especially with the fresh slate that we're all being given this year. It was really a cool thing to just be able to do something different.
No, and I appreciate that, Cait. I think that reflection is so valuable, and I actually would love to dive into that further because that hasn't really come up on Daily Drop. And we're in like week 5 or 6 of implementing our morning show back to the Teach Better community, especially on a consistent basis. And we're trying to cover as many themes and topics as possible. And I know this week's theme obviously is a huge passion for you, which we're going to get into soon in our Brainstorm Bank segment. But if you don't mind, like, we're going to get off track really quick. You're a new teacher, and obviously you're not a new teacher, you've been teaching for years, but you're a new teacher in a new building, and you have a new staff you're getting to know, a new grade level you're getting to know. I just wonder, with our Teach Better family here, I know we have people joining us in the comments. We've been a shout out right now from Korea, so good morning to everybody here. But can you tell us that experience of 2021, you're kind of starting over in a new building, new grade level? can you give us like what's the struggles been thus far? What are the celebration moments? I know you're only 4 days in, but it is so hard to walk into a new school and own it. Like that just takes it's a confidence, right? It's like it takes a I don't know, a feeling.
Totally. I feel it's almost like I have that, like, I feel like the sixth grader in the building, where they're like, where is everything? Help. That's totally me right now, especially our building is pretty large. I'm in one of the biggest middle schools in Westchester County. So,
Do you have any
we
idea
have
how many students there are? Just
1,100 in a middle school.
1,100. See, that's a big middle school here in Illinois too. I
Or
haven't
more
been in
than
a
that,
middle school
actually. I
more
think
than
almost 14.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got close to over 1,000 students in a middle school setting.
Wow.
And the building is really, really, really big. So navigating my way around, as simple as that struggle is, it's not so simple, day to day. But I'm learning here and there. I know where all the important rooms are.
I know.
So yeah.
And that's really the mindset. Like anytime you're entering into a new environment, whether it's a new classroom environment, a new teaching environment, even just you're in the same building, but there's a new team that you're working on. Maybe you're working at the other end of the building. The reality is there are some basics that you're going to want to know the first week, and then you'll probably just figure out the rest later.
Yeah, and having a team, like we're a team teaching model too. Having a team teaching model is so helpful because while I'm the new kid out of the 4 or 5 core teammates that I have, everybody has been so helpful with navigating the culture and just like, hey, let's talk about this kid real quick kind of stuff. It's awesome. So I have some really, really strong colleagues who are creative powerhouses, and I'm really excited.
So tell me, what are like the 5 essentials? First newbie in the building. What are the things that you need to know? Like I assume knowing where your classroom is has to make the top 5.
Yes. So where's my classroom?
Okay.
Um,
Maybe like the main office, like
yeah,
that.
where's the office?
Okay.
Uh, what are administrators like when it comes to observation and assessment?
Oh,
Because
okay. That just
everybody's different, right?
and
Every
that's just
administrator has different procedures, different ideas, different strategy. So that's always really good to know, especially because in New York, I don't know if this is the same in Illinois, but it's really variant district to district. Like we have state standards for teachers, but it can depend on, what the school culture is, how much they expect or what they expect or the different types of rubrics they use and things like
right.
that.
I was gonna say I don't know. I know every state handles evaluations differently, but if you're in Illinois right now and you're listening, a law just passed that change to Illinois evaluation. So if you
Mm.
haven't heard of that yet, this is your heads up that that's coming. We can talk more about that if in the comments you guys say that you want that information. But yes, evaluations, like knowing how that works so you can mentally prepare, that's good.
Holly
Hollywood,
mentioned where are the bathrooms?
yeah,
Yep.
where are the
And of course, for me, number 5, I mean, this is, possibly number 2 or 1. So if we could reorder my list, so, how much, I guess, flexibility do English educators have in opening up the curriculum beyond the canon?
Interesting. So
Um,
when you say that, can you expand on that? Is it more about what like knowing what your standards are or knowing the freedom you have within working towards those standards?
sort of both, I think standards can be achieved
Sure.
no matter what you read, right? So I could read To Kill a Mockingbird with a group of students, or I could read The Hate You Give and still accomplish the same skill set and same goals. But students are getting a text that is more updated, more modern, and has nuanced messages about diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice that they need to hear because they relate to them and they understand that. And it unpacks bigger conversations that are centered in their world. So that flexibility for me is really important, and the ability to introduce or pair texts that they can see hard conversations in matters a lot.
Cait, you are transitioning us perfectly into our theme this week, which is all around equity and inclusion. I know there's a variety of different areas that we can discuss in this, but I was so thrilled that you were able to join us this week because I know above all, I mean, truly, there are so many experts I know you and I turn to learn. But what I always appreciate about you is that you're always eager to talk, always eager to share, always eager to learn from others. And so while we are both eager and passionate about this topic, I know there's still a lot for us to learn and a lot for us to dive into and chew on. So we're going to transition into that conversation as we head into our Brainstorm Bank on this Thursday morning. Good morning, everyone. We are so thrilled you're here. Please go fill up your coffee. Good morning. We are going to dive into our Brainstorm Bank, which is an intentional moment in our show every single morning for Daily Drop-In, where we simply pause and say, hey, do you need anything? Cait is here to obviously dive into our weekly theme this week. However, we are also more than willing, more than happy to take questions from you as you're either chewing on ideas that we share in our dialogue, or you are headed into the tail end of your week and you want to make sure you finish strong and you're thinking through an idea that you want to make sure you implement successfully. We really, really appreciate you being an active participant here, not only a consumer, but choosing to be active in our learning experience. So thank you to those of you who are here and sharing your questions. Cait, I know this is such a passion for you. And even at the tail end of our discussion that we just concluded, you were kind of sharing this idea, the 5 things that a new educator needs to know when entering into a new grade level or a new building. The last one, I think, is such a beautiful transition because your question was, with the content that I need to teach, with the standards that I need to meet, how much flexibility do I have to make it relevant and really important? I love that you said like a modern text. And I think that that is one of the many ways we've discussed this week that we can blend in some of the important conversations we need to be having in school is by bringing relevant text to the forefront of our content. So Cait, I'm just going to kind of leave that there and see what your thoughts are with that concept starting out.
Sure. So the first thing that comes to mind really is this notion of, disrupt. The disrupt text model, especially from Lorena Herman et al. And NCTE, is, really just not, we're looking to replace, right? We're not looking to replace and erase and say that certain literature is not valuable. What is happening is we're strategically pairing those texts that have already taught us a lot, right, in the past century or so, and understanding that there are texts that we can pair with them to update our conversation, right? Because I think really closely about To Kill a Mockingbird, for example, right? It's America's favorite book. Literally, like statistically voted America's favorite book. And why? Because there's so many messages about what happens when we live in a racist society, and that society, won't update its ideals or values or policies, right? So it stands the test of time a lot of the time, because have we learned that lesson yet? Most people would argue that probably not, right? But there are so many things in there that blow open a conversation about, is racism an individual problem, or is it a societal structural problem? And how do we address that structural problem from the top down, as opposed to in our interactions with each other, right? So having bigger conversations with kids about not just racism, but ableism, right? Sexism, homophobia, fat phobia, those things are happening with the disruption of our text models and what we choose to put in students' hands as far as reading.
Yeah, and I know Cait, you obviously work a lot in the English space, and books is a beautiful avenue. That's been kind of a topic that we've seen throughout the week. Is one of the many suggestions that educators are making to one another is to update our texts. Do you have like a typical go-to resource or even person? I mean, website, resource, whatever kind of suits your fancy, to help you find those texts? Because something I brought up with Jed Derryberry, who, by the way, was in the comments earlier. Thank you, Jed, for being here live with us. was this concept of like, oh my gosh, there's so many great ones out there. How do I find them so I can expose them to my student body?
My favorites, as I mentioned, are Disrupt Texts. That's Lorena Herman, Trisha Barbia, Dr. Kim Parker, Julia Torres. They do so much work with strategic pairing and, just how do we add nuance to the canon. And the other half of that is I love NCTE's Build Your Stack, right? They have like posts on their blog pretty frequently where they'll say, group your discussions about ableism with these 10 books, right? So they offer rich and expansive suggestions to teachers to update their lists.
Well, in NCTE, I know they have an event. Was their main conference in December? Is that when everybody?
Yeah, the end of November, right before Thanksgiving.
Okay, I was gonna, because there has been, I have to tell you, this is really a side conversation, but Cait, there's been so many people telling me that they want to attend that event. Again, I'm sorry that I'm speaking ignorantly. Is it, I don't know if it's in person, it's hybrid.
We're actually virtual this year, completely.
Virtual this year.
Yeah.
Which means that everybody listening right now could choose to get involved in that. I know that obviously there's a lot of hurdles that we need to overcome when attending a conference, but a lot of people have been referring to the value that NCTE provides. And I know there's some Teach Better family members that are presenting there, which is exciting. So that's a great resource and a great event that everybody could go choose to participate in as well.
Right.
So with this work, I mean, you just, first of all, I so appreciate that you're able to list off connections that educators in our network can go make to people doing incredible work in this space. I think the value of being able to connect other people with valued voices, with other good educators, is so amazing. But it doesn't all come down to necessarily books, right? If I'm a teacher that wants other suggestion outside of books, there's other avenues to go as well. So I really appreciate you bringing in not only the discussion around race, but you discussed, homosexuality and other avenues that make people quote unquote unique or different. Can you speak more to that as we're talking about this concept throughout the week?
Right. So, there's so much to that larger conversation. Those things that I mentioned are all sort of under the umbrella of intersectionality, right? So it's the understanding that all of us are more than one thing, right? Whether those are layers of marginalization or privilege. And it's really important to acknowledge the ways that those interact with each other. Because if you are a Black woman, those are two marginalizations you have, because in society, right, our power is structured so that men typically have most of it. So things like that, right? But you might also be a white able-bodied person, and those are two privileges that we consider because the access that those people have in our society is greater than those with disabilities. So thinking about not conversations beyond race, but conversations that include things within marginalized communities is paramount, right? I think a lot of our focus has been really zeroed in on race and racism in the past year and a half, obviously because national attention has come to so many different events with the murder of George Floyd. And we're just in that constant conversation of we cannot look away anymore. But I would argue that the same thing is happening with ableism and disability, because we've seen it happen in real time, right? Now, all of a sudden, that the majority needs access to online learning and differentiation, it's suddenly available, but disabled folks have been asking for it forever. So those conversations about power and who gets to decide who has access to what take place in schools constantly, because schools are microcosms of our world.
Cait, I love talking to you, but I did not expect this direction in the conversation. I'm so appreciative that you brought this dialogue to the many things that obviously you have shared and will continue to share, because I don't know that I feel very educated on this topic. And I have been promising our audience that if I don't know something that I'm going to ask. And even if it makes me sound ignorant or uneducated, I think this is such an important topic that sometimes some of those questions, even though we feel foolish, can actually open a new door to learning and exposure. So when I'm thinking of this topic that you've just brought up, I mean, it would be impossible, I assume, to list all of the differentiating factors here. But what do you think are the core ones that I need to be aware of and consider? I mean, I'm thrilled you brought this topic up.
So, like I said, we're in that conversation about race. We're constantly, you know, I think people are looking to shift their awareness, and there's been so much conversation, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice has been centered around that for a really long time. The pandemic brought about conversations of ableism and mental health, especially, and I've written about this as well. It's interesting because now that we've experienced collective anxiety, suddenly mental health is a priority. But folks with mental illness have been like, I need help and I need you to stop stigmatizing me since forever.
Yeah.
So it's about what we pay attention to, and what we pay attention to is predominantly part of what we experience. If we experience it, of course we care about it, right? But if we don't experience it, it's easier to just not think about certain things. And I think that matters deeply because that's what empathy is. That's what we teach our kids every day. Be empathetic, right? But if we wake up and we don't have to think about certain things, then they're not going to be part of our day. One thing that I notice and that I do a lot of work around in social justice circles is the topic of weight and weight bias, right? Because even the most interested in justice people, right? Even the most progressive of people still are in that space where diet culture kind of pervades their mind, and they think, well, you're not experiencing oppression because of your body type. You can change your body type, right? So folks often think, even the most progressive ones, that if you feel slighted because of your weight or your body size, then just change it, right? And any marginalization you feel or experience after you don't change it is therefore your own fault, right? So that is a huge issue too. And those, again, intersect with race, class, power, poverty, access to nutrition. So if we're not thinking about the ways that our bias sort of impedes our thinking and thinking about the things we don't have to experience every day, then our empathy has a stopping point.
Cait, I so appreciate that you brought up this concept. I think it lends a lot of different ideas to chew on as hopefully our network here is thinking through what you've shared thus far. But I would like if I could shift this slightly, obviously having empathy, awareness is kind of these first steps. When we get into equitable practices, what are some suggestions that you've seen, that you've had other people share, that you feel like any educator, regardless of where they teach and what community they teach in, can really begin to consider the equitable practices that they need to have in their classroom, maybe related to all of these groups, obviously?
One of the things that I think, and this is not just me speaking as an ELA teacher, is tremendous and can make such a difference in people's lives is language, right? So the ways that we talk about marginalized people, right? Whether you say illegal or undocumented, right? Can dehumanize or humanize a person, right? Whether you, I don't know, call someone, special needs or disabled, can humanize or dehumanize a person, right? Because what does special needs even mean? Right?
Let's dive into that. That language is essential. I mean, holy cow, even just in your examples, I feel like everybody listening to this must sit back and say, oh my gosh, you're right. That one word, that one phrase changes the entire conversation.
Right. Because that language has the power to either tell someone that they're welcome or other them, right? Absolutely. So even just the language of who we talk about and how we talk about them makes a huge difference. And so many folks, are, like, well, it doesn't matter how we say it because like I'm just like you're just trying to be PC, and it's like no, that language has psychological implications, right? It's not just about being correct and being um, sensitive because there's new terminology for things. It's that language that we use tells people what we think of them, right? Or what we should think about people who maybe aren't even in the room, right? So if you're in a room full of a homogenous group of people and the group of people you're talking about isn't there, now that group of 28 students thinks that this is the proper way and the appropriate way to talk about folks who are marginalized in our culture, right? So the lessons that we teach through our language make a huge impact on how we treat the people in the world when we walk outside of our classroom.
Cait, I think that this is probably the reason. If I had to pinpoint one reason why I was nervous about this topic this week, it was what you just touched on, is the use of language and wanting to ensure that you are using the most welcoming, appropriate language humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
Not to get personal, but the reality is like there's a platform that Teach Better has, provided me, provided you, provided so many to amplify voices of educators and foster dialogue and conversation. I think one of the stressors that I carry very, very close to my heart is when we are provided these opportunities to speak, whether it be live here on camera or on a stage later today, how can you ensure that you are using the most appropriate and welcoming language, and how do you stay up to date on that? Because the reality is that month over month it evolves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of my biggest fears when even discussing this topic or opening it up to dialogue is the fear of using language that I am unaware or ignorant is the wrong usage. And I guess I'm sharing that with you. I don't know if you have suggestions, because I think that that's a fear a lot of educators share. And I truly believe the Teach Better family wants to be a part of this change. But how do you do that when you don't necessarily have somebody correcting your language every moment of the day?
Yeah. And I think one of the suggestions that jumps out at me in a huge way is ask the people who you're talking about how they'd like to be talked about. you know? So do disabled people want to be called special needs? Right? Do, larger body people want to be called obese? Do, like if you're talking about a group of people, it's not just this amorphous, nebulous thing, right? These are human beings that you're speaking about. And thinking about how we talk about them starts with asking them what they prefer to be talked about. Like, the tone that we use, the language that we use, the words that we use, right? So many words, like you said, evolve sometimes on a monthly basis, right? And a lot of that happens especially in the LGBTQIA plus community, and I just listed 6 letters as opposed to the 4 that we started with in some capacities, right? And our language evolves because people do, right? We haven't, the existence of non-binary people isn't brand new.
Right.
Non-binary people have existed since humans have, but there's a word for them that makes them feel seen and safe and included. And that's what we have to adjust to, right? Not that they're here, but that they're proclaiming that they're here.
So to add another layer to this, because Cait, holy cow, I couldn't agree more. What if, and I'm saying this because I assume there must be somebody thinking this as they're listening to our dialogue this morning. What if I am eager to ask, eager to learn, dying to make sure that I do this right because I want to be a part of the solution, right? But I don't have access to somebody who is in a community that I want to ask questions about. And when I say access, I truly just mean like within my bubble social norm, right? I'm live here. I'm going to go visit a school. I might stop at a coffee shop. I'm going to pick up dinner. I'm going to go see my parents for break the fast tonight for Yom Kippur. As I'm looking through my day, what if I go through that entire day and I never interact with somebody a part of that group?
That's why I love the internet.
There you go.
The internet is a great place. I've learned so much about how to talk about autistic people from autistic people on the internet. you know, literally, like there are artists and creators and like that make cartoons that give you step-by-step instructions about how to speak to or about autistic people. Like the internet is amazing. And so if you live in a remote location with no access to queer people or fat people or autistic people, it is possible to learn how to treat them before you encounter them, right? And despite the fact that, like Brene Brown has her own like intersectional stuff that she's got to work through. There's one quote that I love by her, and it's, "I'd rather get it right than be right." Right? So sometimes we're so afraid that we're going to look like we're ignorant or that we're wrong. And that doesn't matter, right? Because when you're afraid of being wrong, you're centering yourself, right? When the conversation is really about the most vulnerable person in the room, meaning structurally vulnerable, right? So if you're concerned about being wrong, sometimes think about, I'd rather get it right and make this person feel safe and included than look silly trying to figure it out, right?
So
Because you looking silly is going to be over, but that person's structural oppression will not.
I see a comment I want to get to. So thank you for those of you that are participating in the comments. I think it's interesting that I asked you, if I go throughout my day and never engage with that group, how in the world can I learn and feel ownership over being a part of the solution? And your suggestion in simplest of form was what you do throughout your day, you have control over, and who you're exposed to throughout your day, you have control over. And while you may not physically bump into somebody a part of every single group, you could choose to be an active educator who builds a community, a virtual professional learning community. And within that virtual professional learning community can exist any type of person that we choose because they're all there for us to connect with. And I think I find that is a suggestion when we are discussing educational topics, that we are like, go connect with people that know or that have researched or XYZ. And yet when this conversation comes up, I don't feel like that's the go-to solution. And I'm so appreciative that you brought that up, because every single one of us can get online on our favorite social media platform. So it's even easy for us to do if we want to stay easy and connect with somebody that can educate us in this area. So holy moly, Cait, it's 6:30 in the morning Central, and you're sharing so much insight. People in the comments are eating it up. There's a comment here by somebody, I assume in our private group, because it shows up as Facebook user, so I apologize for that. It says, I have 150 students each day. I teach middle school. I know each person may want to be preferred or referred in a different way. I get worried I'm going to offend somebody. How do I reference a group when each person has their own ideas? Can you kind of dive into, I know there's a lot in this comment that we could touch on. Where do you want to begin?
Number one, singular they is not grammatically incorrect.
Okay. Tell me more about that, because I have heard that argument by people who disagree with you, and every time I'm like, oh, yeah. And I really think this is something we have to discuss.
I'm an English teacher. I have some ethos in this discussion. Singular they is not grammatically incorrect. So there's one, right? And I've heard teachers say so many different things to address a group, right? But one that I like to use, I used to be like, okay, folks, let's go, take out our planners and write down the homework, because everyone in the room is a human, presumably. So folks applies to them, right? There are definitely like gender neutral, nebulous ways to refer to groups of people that will work for everyone. Right. I'm in New York, so hey guys is a constant habit I'm trying to break. I say y'all a lot, and everyone's like, "You're not from the South, are you?" And I'm like, "No,
Nobody's
I just really don't want to be exclusive because you guys doesn't cut it." Greetings, party people is my favorite. Yes.
Megan Wells jumping in, our green heart guru, saying, "Hey guys, I have the solution for you. Just pause right now. I have a solution. Greetings, party people."
That is the answer. Megan Wells has the answer.
Megan Wells, for those of you in the Teach Better family, we all know Megan Wells always has the answer. So, yeah, that's a good one. I also think that it's important, like you said, that if you're not sure, can you go to the people that you're concerned about and clarify? I think so much of the fear, and Cait, you've touched on this already. I think I'm just processing all the things you've been able to share thus far. But a lot of the concern around this topic comes with an unknown, that if we actively choose to be a part of discovering what the answer to that unknown is, that some of that fear can truly dissipate with almost no work being done, right? So this fear of feeling as if there's one person in the room or there's people in the room that you are going to in some way offend or discredit or harm, truly taking a moment to go up and confirm, open that door for dialogue, it really can be a part of that solution for sure.
Yeah. And I talk to my students a lot about this in the past few days as we develop our community agreements. The idea of acceptance versus tolerance, right? When you tolerate someone, I tolerate my siblings, meaning like I put up with you because you're here and I guess that's fine. But accepting someone carries a different set of steps, right? We can accept folks and say, you are welcome here. And I acknowledge and appreciate that you're here with me, but I don't accept some negative behaviors that you're doing or the things that you value, right? I don't have to accept those because I come with a different set of experiences, but I accept you as a human being, right? And that's a lot of, our kids are navigating and laughing about cancel culture, right? But Liz Kleinrock said this a few weeks ago that we have to focus more on not accepting people's behavior, but accepting them, right? Because accepting them means acknowledging that they can change into a person who includes other people in their language, in their actions, and their behaviors, right? And that's an active step. Accepting people is an active step and saying, I may not agree with you, I may not like what you're doing, but I love you and I welcome you here, right? And that's a step that every teacher can and should take in their classrooms, acknowledging that, we're going to go beyond tolerating each other, because tolerating each other means you're annoying me and I'm just putting up with you. And then after I leave the room, I'm not going to think about you anymore. Right. But that person is still in the same building as you. They're still in the same community as you. So you need to think about them because their potential affects you just as much. Right. And their capacity to be a better person tomorrow affects you too. We're all interrelated. And that's, I think, what the crux of intersectionality tries to get behind, is that our identities interact with each other constantly, whether we're thinking about each other or not, right? So if you're in $1 million house, right, you don't have to think about people on a different side of town from you who have less, but their lives impact yours inadvertently every minute of every day.
There are so many takeaways from today's conversation, especially on this Thursday morning, beginning our daily drop-in with our Brainstorm Bank. We're going to transition here into celebrations, and I think there's been so many celebrations already in this episode of Daily Drop-In, but we also have a lot of celebrations that are taking place today, throughout the day, and some good news that we're going to get into. So, Cait, are you ready to celebrate?
Yeah,
always. Let's do it. Good morning. Good morning. For all of you joining Daily Drop-In, we have had a deep, deep conversation. Cait O'Connor is one of my favorite people to talk to around this topic because she is constantly schooling me, on what things I need to do to be uncomfortable and be a part of a solution. I love, love, love always hearing your thoughts, Cait. For our last segment of Daily Drop-In, we're just going to get into our good news stories, our celebrations for the day. As all of you know, if you are active in the Daily Drop-In, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we flip-flop our good news and our Brainstorm Bank so we can get into our educational discussion right off the bat, and then we conclude with some good news for all of you today. We have a lot in store, Cait. I'm actually a little overwhelmed by these celebrations today because I'm looking at not only the list provided to me by the Teach Better team, Rachel, who is amazing on our team, but also on a website that we introduced to our network a few days ago called National Today. Literally everything seems to fall on today. There's like 4,500 things to celebrate. I'm just going to try and list them. If you didn't know, it was Collect Rocks Day, so go collect a rock. There are so many different things. It's International Day of Preservation of the Ozone Layer. Wouldn't that be an incredible discussion? It's Mayflower Day, Mexican Independence Day, National Choose Your Chocolate Day. You know I'll be celebrating that. National Cinnamon Raisin Bread Day, National Guacamole Day. Okay, that's going to take over everyone's discussion of this afternoon. National Pawpaw Day, National Play-Doh Day, National Step Family Day. Oh, how powerful. National Tattoo Story Day. Cait, do you have any tattoos?
I do.
See, we could go into our stories for tattoos, and that could be a part of celebrating today. Stay away from Seattle Day. That doesn't seem very fair. I do love those that live in Seattle. And then Working Parents Day. Additionally, we've also mentioned for those of you who are eager to continue to celebrate all the holidays of religions out there, today is the official day of Yom Kippur, which is a Jewish holiday that will conclude tonight at sundown. Just so you are aware, because we all like to kind of like celebrate with those around us. If you have anyone who is celebrating this holiday, they will be fasting all day today. So something to keep in mind. Cait, as we always celebrate our good news, we like to bring in a good news story, and this can be used to foster conversation. You can, not only lift up your spirits, but also bring it as a fun fact to continue to build relationships with new colleagues or as a student bell ringer or anything in between. I thought this article would be interesting for us to look at. Cait, I consider you and I very, very young. I think we are so cool and young and hip. I just think you and I have so many youthful qualities. We need to aspire to be more like this person. The oldest U.S. veteran of World War II celebrates his 112th birthday today. 112 is how many years old he just turned. There is a beautiful article about the work being done. Lawrence Brooks celebrated Sunday with a drive-by party in his New Orleans home hosted by the National World War II Museum. He is celebrating his 112th birthday. The museum has previously hosted parties for Brooks. Along with coronavirus pandemic, this has caused for the events to shift to a drive-by celebration for the last 2 years, but they continue to celebrate all the incredible work he's doing. He was born in Louisiana in 1909. Brooks has lived in New Orleans since 1929, drafted in 1940, and was a private in the armies when World War II was happening. So holy cow.
That's awesome.
Could you imagine 112? I mean, that man has lived. I want him on Daily Drop-In. For real, I think it'd be great. We have some comments here from previous conversations. Hallie's jumping in saying that she also loves to refer to her students as scientists or engineers or designers. That was such a wonderful addition, Holly. Thank you for bringing that discussion. And then I like this: tattoos of chocolate or guacamole would be interesting stories. That would really be appropriate for today. If you had a tattoo of chocolate or guacamole, you could really celebrate all out. That's all I'm saying.
I know someone who does have a tattoo of an avocado, actually, like a half of an avocado with the pit.
Yeah, see, I feel like that's a very like cute tattoo, depending on how that's done. That's like a very like guacamole is a really relevant hot topic right now. I love guacamole. Well, for all of you celebrating the incredible things being done, I hope that one of the major takeaways, not only in the celebrations of the beautiful holidays that we have to share some positivity with today, but also some deep discussion we were able to have on Daily Drop-In. Cait, you brought so many ideas, and one of the major takeaways I hope everybody considers is the opportunity that we have to widen our bubble to include all types of people so we can continue to be learners to really be a part of this solution. Cait, can you provide us with some insight on how we can stay connected to you? I know that you and I always go to you when I need something. I love coming live and having those conversations as well. If other viewers want to continue to foster these conversations, especially with you, and also connect with the educators that you continue to amplify the voices of, how can they get connected?
I love using Twitter. My handle is right below me here. I actually can be found on Instagram at the same handle. I'm less active on Instagram. This year is my goal to try to be more active on Instagram. So I've been posting a little bit more frequently, but maybe someone can nudge me to be more active on Instagram. That'd be really cool. Um, yeah. So Twitter, Instagram, my Teach Better blog, Teach Beyond series is definitely a good place to get, some of the ideas that I put out there if you want those. But any questions, always Twitter, DMs are open.
I love it. As you guys know, for Daily Drop-In, we are constantly publishing blogs that support the themes and topics of Daily Drop-In. Cait, I know that you have a monthly series, so they can not only go consume one piece maybe this month from you, but actually they can go back it months and months and months to continue to learn from you, and then we'll continue to be able to interact with your content that way. I so appreciate you waking up bright and early the first week of school. I'm so appreciative that even while you're so teacher tired from the first week back and every transition that you're going through right now, that you chose to share your insight today. I can only imagine that when I say thank you, it is from the entire Teach Better community bringing this conversation to the forefront. So thank you so much for being here.
Of course, glad to be here with you, Rae. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. For everyone else, we will see you bright and early tomorrow morning on Friday. Brad Hughes will be with us. You guys know Brad joins us every Friday. Please enjoy your last few sips of coffee as you walk into the best Thursday you have ever had. It is September 16th, and this is going to be the best day of the week. So please take a deep breath in and get ready for the most wonderful day ever. If you need anything, we are always here. So please continue to reach out. Have a wonderful day, guys. See you later.